This is seen.
Fans of Stranger Things were buzzing about a rumored secret.
One notices they're gone.
Dick.
What?
That was really bad.
Remember when this is seen in the first season where the low budget and low expectations forced the Duffer Brothers to put their heads down and create something truly memorable. And now, I mean, the show is just too big, okay? There's no urgency whatsoever to make it good, and whether the network or the creatives are more at fault is kind of irrelevant, because in either case, it's for the same reason. It's really the popularity and the fan culture that killed Stranger Things. Stranger Things just reeks of indifference from almost all parties involved, and it obviously only exists now to make money, which is somewhat frustrating, but again, I'm not hating on Netflix for playing the good hand they were dealt. They had a winning lottery ticket after the first season, and while I would have preferred the True Detective anthology format with future seasons, I can see why they just decided to cash it in instead. After all, even True Detective never lived up to the first season either.
Fucked up thing I ever caught.
But I'm more upset with the fan culture surrounding this show, and stan culture in general. Like, people still swear behind Stranger Things like it's the second coming of Christ. Need proof? I'm cool with people liking things, but as long as fan bases accept slop at face value as gospel, this is the quality of storytelling that's going to be produced. And I think with generative AI becoming more and more prevalent in the film industry, I think remaining critical of the media we consume will become more and more important in determining the future of digital media production. So, in the end, complacency might be the strangest thing of them all. Okay, I'm gonna go see if the fan in my hotel room can support my body weight. Thank you for your time, fellas, and God bless.
My Uncle Junior works there, who is a Jehovah's Witness. Believe it or not, he went from Catholic to...
Come over here.
I don't think so, pal! We're all gonna die!
A few moments later.
There's clearly something incredibly difficult about making a good TV show finale. A multitude of good to great series have completely shit the bed when it's time to stick the landing.
Best season ever!
It's been clear for a while now the Duffer Brothers had no real plan for where Stranger Things was headed, and that they were winging it the entire time. But that's worked for them fairly well thus far. Hopefully, their fly-by-the-seat-of-their-pants method of storytelling would deliver a well-written, satisfying end to one of the biggest shows of the last 20 years.
No way. Not this time.
In fact, the final season was so awful and left so many plot threads unanswered that it spawned a fan petition to release scenes that simply didn't exist. The narrative was so badly constructed that a theory spread online that Vecna was manipulating the audience and that what we were watching was his twisted version of events when in reality the characters were just under his spell. The final episode was so unsatisfying that fans are convinced there is an alternate ending on the cutting room floor. I haven't seen this level of outrage since Game of Thrones.
Well, Danny kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet.
But let's not get it twisted. Stranger Things has not been some perfect show up until this point. Season 1 was fantastic, but it clearly lost the plot in Season 2 and jumped the shark in Season 3. However, Season 4 was a return to form and got me fully reinvested. Although a litany of plot holes, conveniences, repeated story beats, and character regressions has plagued some of the previous seasons, there were intriguing mysteries and likable characters to keep us invested. If it ended well, then it would all be worth it. With a finale comes finality. No more beating around the bush.
What are stories but mystery boxes?
It's time to deliver answers, satisfaction, and an ending that warrants a lasting legacy. After seeing Season 5 in its entirety, it's clear the Duffers were lying when they said they had a clear vision for the end of the show. Plus, it wasn't very good, and the road to get there was riddled with feces, plot holes, bad writing, and disappointment. The best way to describe this season is running out the clock, going nowhere fast. How do you deliver over 9 hours of content that feels slow as hell yet also rushed?
Most impressive
There were a lot of interesting ideas tackled in the finale, but we had to sit through unimportant filler until the final episode, and by the time we got there, it was time to speed run to wrap things up, and many story threads and plot lines were simply ignored. I don't know if I've ever seen a season of television written this badly with this many plot holes. There's a lot to tackle this season, so my analysis might be a bit all over the place. So I'm going to divide this video into 3 parts, focusing on Volume 1, Volume 2, and the finale, and do my best to break down this slow motion train wreck. Real quick, if you're enjoying the video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. My goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers and get fully monetized, and any support is greatly appreciated. Now back to the video. Volume 1, The Death of World Building. At the end of Season 4, the Earth is cracked open, spores from the Upside Down are in the Hawkins sky, and we are led to believe that Season 5 is going to be a full apocalyptic war with Vecna.
Psych! That's the wrong number!
So, the military threw plates over the cracks of the Upside Down and just sealed it up?
Run the bullshit! Go!
Okay, well, it's real lucky those cracks haven't shifted at all and that they just stopped growing or they'd be screwed. Why did Vecna just stop his attack? In fact, why doesn't he come to the right side up and finish the job himself?
A good question. For another time.
Well, at least it'll be interesting to see the reaction from the townspeople, considering some of them must have seen the giant red glowing cracks in the ground beneath them.
You sure about that?
So, nobody outside of our main cast even acknowledges the military occupation. Nobody saw the glowing cracks in the ground, the giant plumes of particles that were launched into the sky. There's no rumors or conspiracies running through the populace. It's just business as usual.
Oh, okay.
This was maybe the worst creative decision of the season. Viewers were ready for the final battle to commence, and yet we're back to the usual school settings, sneaking around town, and family drama. How am I supposed to feel the impending doom of Vecna when you can just throw metal fucking slabs on top of the barriers?
What, are you retarded?
You can't have your cake and eat it too. It can't be the end of the world, and yet the characters are working at radio stations and attending school like nothing happened. This is peak levels of tell don't show, a cardinal writing sin. So Vecna has disappeared and Hopper has been sneaking into the Upside Down to find him. I have many questions here. I thought the air was toxic down there. I get Will was captured and had no mask available in Season 1, but why is Hopper going down there with no gear? And where are all the monsters? We don't see a single Demogorgon, no bats, no dogs. I mean, I guess those only appear when the plot needs them to.
How convenient.
With the lack of monsters, I'm not sure why Hopper didn't bring 11 in the first place, or hell, why didn't everyone go down there? The Upside Down clearly poses no threat unless the story needs it to. Sorry, Eddie.
Rest now, brother. We have the watch, and I'll see you in Valhalla.
And we're getting ahead of things here, but if they've systematically searched the Upside Down, how in the fuck did Hopper not see the giant wall that surrounds it, or anyone in the previous seasons?
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
Another huge mistake the show made, I don't care about Holly at all. I deadass forgot Mike even had another sister, and why are we introducing her in the 11th hour, no pun intended, when we could have had a different character we're attached to be captured by Vecna instead? This show has already had a huge issue with introducing way too many characters, many of whom no longer serve a purpose, so why introduce even more? And unfortunately, there are even more like Vicky, Dr. K, and the majority of Holly's classmates who basically do nothing. They're props more than actual characters. We end up spending so much time with Holly that's completely out of left field, to the point where I was like, where the fuck are the main characters?
Where are they?
The majority of the OG cast has like nothing to do. They're all either making fruitless plans, tracking Hopper in the Upside Down, or sitting around with their thumb up their ass. We really couldn't have given them anything better to do, or traded out Holly and her classmates for the characters we know and love?
Nah, I don't really feel like it.
And before I hear some dumbass say, well, Vecna needed the kids for his plan, let me explain why you're a moron. First off, the Duffers could have changed it so some members of the OG cast were kidnapped. Second, they're in control of the story for God's sake, and if this was the plan all along, which it clearly wasn't, then Holly and her group should have been introduced long before this season. And third, even within the internal logic of the narrative, it doesn't make sense. In Season 4, Vecna doesn't use little kids to open the 4 pillars in Hawkins, so this feels like complete bullshit to force in an unnecessary storyline with a character I couldn't give a shit about. And this is no shade to the actress, I think she's fine. I'm strictly roasting the writers on this dumbass decision. Let's move on to the military. They serve legitimately no purpose other than to create artificial drama.
What do you actually do around here, man?
I guess we couldn't waste more runtime if the party can go back and forth to the Upside Down as they please, and if the feds aren't barreling down on their asses, and there's just no tension. 11 manhandles these retards like it's nothing, and they don't notice the secret door inside their base, nor the lookout in the church that is right above them. They literally can't succeed whatsoever until the finale, where everyone is captured and somehow isn't thrown into Guantanamo for murdering military personnel. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Also, where is Dr. Owens? Where are the Hawkins police from last season?
The world may never know.
Also, why does Dr. K even exist? We learn nothing about her except the fact she can throw a man twice her size and half her age around like a ragdoll. Are we sure she didn't get mind flare particles inside her? She is a sorry excuse for a character, and I guess it was a bad idea to kill Brenner last season. Eventually, Hopper and 11 find 8, who's alive in the lab where they thought Vecna was.
I know that ain't who I think it is.
Why is the lab in the Upside Down? Why does the thunder in the Upside Down magically go off every 7 seconds so that 11 is able to sneak into the facility?
I don't know.
And more importantly, why is 8 back? The episode she appeared in was the lowest rated in the show's history. Well, I'm sure she's back for a good reason. The Duffers wouldn't just bring her back for contrived drama and to kill her, right? Well, at least we had more time for Will and Robin to talk about the big gay.
Ooh, Jesus Christ.
Now don't get it twisted, I'm not homophobic. I think Will should have come out seasons ago, and I have no problem with this. But it feels like the writers were embarrassed that it took them this long to finally acknowledge it, and that they needed to make up for that by putting emphasis on it in multiple scenes. And the problem with these scenes are as follows. 1, I never realized how much I hated Robin until now. She simply does not shut the fuck up. Her quirky, autistic ramblings were so annoying I almost skipped these scenes altogether. And she, like many other characters, serves virtually no purpose in this narrative other than to be the other gay character who mentors Will. Did I mention Will is
gay?
The second problem, it's very hard for me to buy that Vecna is a threat and the stakes even matter when Will and Robin are more focused on him coming out than the literal end of the world. Number 3, we're spending what feels like an obscene amount of screen time on this when we could be focusing on other characters and giving them things to do. Now, I did like Will's power up and I thought it was well earned. Will has suffered a lot as a character and deserved a big win, but I just felt it was ridiculous that he had to come to terms with his sexuality to finally tap into his powers. I mean, in the flashback montage, Robin's voiceover was talking about letting go of his fear to feel free. You're telling me Will's ultimate moment of bravery wasn't surviving the season 1 kidnapping and the Mind Flayer's possession and continuing to soldier on? Only when he accepted himself as being gay was he able to break free of those mental bonds and unlock 11 powers? Also, why the fuck does Vecna even show up here other than to Aura Farm? Good thing for our heroes he decided not to kill everyone then and there. I was coping so hard after this, like, Vecna wouldn't have just let them live if it wasn't part of his plan. There's definitely a reason.
How do we tell him?
Maybe the most ridiculous moment of Volume 1 was Mrs. Wheeler's last stand against the Demogorgon. I thought the moment in itself was okay. It was a clear reference to Ripley's famous moment.
Get away from her, you bitch!
But the insane part is she gets her torso essentially torn to shreds, bleeds half a gallon of blood, and survives.
Were you killed?
Sadly, yes. But I lived.
Also, why the hell did nobody check on Mr. Wheeler at all? Not even once. He basically does not exist until the ending of the season. Buddy gives up all his bacon at breakfast, houses an entire other family, and gets discarded like trash. Absolutely wild.
It's an evil world we live in.
Volume 2. Plot conveniences galore. The majority of this volume is focused on Max and Holly, or at least that's what it feels like since most of the other characters still don't have much to do. Oh yeah, Max returned. I didn't mention it before because I wanted to avoid talking about this Holly storyline as long as I could.
That's too damn bad!
So Max has been trapped in Vecna's memories for 2 years. She tried finding a way out but became lost in his mind, and even when she heard the Kate Bush song again, Vecna caught up and she hid in a cave that Henry refused to enter.
How convenient is that? Wow.
Well, I'm here to say Max simply didn't try hard enough to escape. As Holly shows, all she needed to do was pull out a broken looking glass, coincidentally line up the crack that just happens to be the same shape as the outline of the cave they were in, walk in the general direction of said cave, and through the power of bad writing discover a pit that just so happens to be hidden right in that general vicinity that turns out to be exactly where they need to go to escape.
It's a joke. It's all a joke.
They literally pulled a Rise of Skywalker. And like that dog shit film, this is unironically one of the most blatant plot conveniences I've ever seen.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
They stumble onto the memory that Vecna simply cannot bear to face. We see Henry as a kid who has discovered an injured man with a briefcase. He yells at Henry to get back while the poor kid's just trying to help him. He shoots Henry in the hand, which makes him freak out and bash dude's face in with a rock. Right when we're about to see what's inside the briefcase, Max is like, "Come on, Holly, that part of the plot isn't supposed to be revealed yet, and we don't see what's inside." This raises so many questions. Who was the man? What was in the briefcase? Why did he have it? Why was this so traumatic that Henry wouldn't venture inside the cave? Surely all of these elements will be thoroughly addressed later, right?
Wrong, sir. Wrong!
So the portals eventually open, Max is about to return to her body in the hospital, and Holly will wake up in Vecna's lair. She can't escape with Max since her body is being held captive in the abyss with the other kids. And instead of escaping as quickly as she can, Max decides to start a podcast with Holly called Words of Encouragement.
Let's go! Move! Buddy! Move!
Bro, the portal has closed on you before multiple times. Why the fuck are you not sprinting to freedom? I understand comforting Holly, but not for 10 minutes. The other thing this conversation does is open another can of worms. Max tells Holly she doesn't need music to escape and that she just needs to latch onto a comforting memory instead.
Bitch, are you for real?
If this is true, then how did Max not escape already? How did she come to this conclusion?
How? I don't know.
Alright, I'm done talking about that bullshit. Steve, Nancy, Jonathan, and Dustin manage to get into the Upside Down at the end of Volume 1. They come up against a huge wall, and Dustin believes that Holly is trapped beyond it. Again, how the fuck did nobody notice the Great Wall of China before now?
You Mongolian! Don't you break down my wall!
Anyways, Dustin also believes that the wall is like a shield and that there's likely a shield generator that is maintaining it. They all travel to Hawkins' lab because it happens to be in the center of the circle created by the wall. Thus, it's a likely spot for the generator. They split up, Dustin and Steve end up fighting, and after Steve storms off, Dustin hits the wall next to him, which just so happens to lead to a secret room that contains Brenner's journal that explains everything they need to know about the shield generator.
Are you kidding me?
Also, wasn't Brenner a shitty artist? Those drawings look pretty good to me. Nancy and Jonathan end up shooting the thing, and the resulting burst of energy knocks them out and melts the floor. They end up in a room that is filling up with the melted parts of the building, and it looks like this is the end. The couple has definitely had some rough patches in the last season or two, and they decide in the face of death to address the many issues in their relationship. This is actually a pretty complex, emotional scene. Jonathan reveals he was going to propose, but realized that it wouldn't solve anything. He jokingly unproposes to her, and she agrees not to marry him. It comes off as a multifaceted interaction where they acknowledge their issues but are determined to push through as a couple. But apparently I was wrong. This scene was them breaking up, and so many other people were also lost on this that the Duffers headed to Twitter to clarify. Again, maybe your writing isn't very good if you have to live tweet at the audience to resolve confusion.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Later on, we learn that the shield generator is made of exotic matter and that it essentially is holding the Upside Down together. It's revealed the Upside Down is a wormhole connecting Earth and the abyss. What is this exotic matter? How was it created? Who set it in place atop the lab? Were Brenner's journals created before or after the discovery of exotic matter? Was it created when 11 originally opened the portal to the Upside Down, or did it precede those events?
My brain hurts!
Also, when Nancy T-800 shot the exotic matter, it caused a rift in the wall. Hopper, 11, and 8 are about to be pulled into the eternal abyss, but luckily, a portal back to the right side up appears right in front of them.
You can't keep getting away with it!
Holly eventually escapes and happens to fall right above the lab. This not only informs the crew that she's not behind the wall, but shows exactly where she's being held. How lucky. It's even luckier that Vecna was able to use his telekinesis to pull her back, or she would be a puddle. But if he can pull her up, why isn't he able to do this to Nancy and the others? Couldn't he levitate them mid-air and drop them to their deaths?
How should I know? I'm retarded.
And then there's Will's coming out scene. I didn't have a problem with this in theory, but it just felt so forced. Like, guys, I know the world could be ending any minute, but we really need to talk about who I'm attracted to first. That's the real priority. Will explains he needs to conquer his fear of coming out, so Vecna doesn't use it against him, but this doesn't even come up in the finale. Will's sexuality changes nothing in the show, even though the Duffers insisted it was pivotal to the story.
Liar!
And that brings us to the ending, the finale. rushed and unearned. To be real, I was enjoying the first bit of it because things were finally moving along, but then the plot comes completely undone. How were Vecna and the Mind Flayer defeated so easily? I mean, Will came out for longer than this entire fight lasted. The crew had a single rifle, a flamethrower, some gas in bottles, and a few spears, and killed King Ghidorah in like 5 minutes. Its legs are the size of 3 football fields, and somehow the crew outruns it like it's nothing. Now, as a big kaiju fan, I gotta admit, I really like the design of this new Mind Flayer, but why was it ignored for the last 2 seasons just to be shoehorned into the end? I want to know more about the symbiotic relationship it has with Vecna. Like, why didn't Vecna die right away when the Mind Flayer's heart shriveled up? Also, why did it take physical form when it would have been much harder to attack as the shadow we've seen before? It made itself vulnerable to attack by being flesh and blood, and they could have explained that it was preparing to invade Earth, and we've seen that it can't come to the right side up in its shadow form in Season 3. But it's all left up to guessing since they don't mention any of this, not even in a throwaway line. Also, where are the Demogorgons? Where are the Demodogs, the Demobats? This is the final confrontation. Last time I checked, they live here. Maybe they read the script and said, screw this shit, we're out. The Duffers have come out to address this, saying Vecna wasn't expecting a sneak attack, but they're here somewhere. Buddy, you're the writer. The fuck you mean they're here somewhere? And how does Vecna not know about the plan? He used Will for seasons to spy on Hawkins. He figured it out during the confrontation with Hopper, and he read Eleven's mind in this same episode. How was he not expecting it?
I'm kind of retarded.
Also, how is Will not heavily injured after Vecna and the Mind Flayer's death? He was screaming in pain when the Demogorgon was on fire, and yet he's just fine when Vecna is decapitated?
Barely an inconvenience.
Wait, is the Mind Flayer even dead? We see the Mind Flayer particles fly out of the kids' mouths when they're freed. How does that work if the main body is dead?
Forget about it.
And speaking of the kids, it's never answered why Vecna needed 12 kids for the plan to work. And what about Vecna's plan? What exactly is it? We know he wants to meld the Abyss with the Earth, but for what purpose? Won't the impact of the planets kill everyone, including the Mind Flayer and himself? On a separate note, I was okay that Joyce killed Vecna, but it definitely should have been Will or Eleven since they suffered the most at his hands. And speaking of Joyce, she nor Hopper even acknowledged the entire show that they went to school with Henry Creel. It's just never brought up, and I shouldn't have to see or read about a spin-off play to know what the fuck is going on. What happened to Henry Creel's origin reveal? Why is the guy with the briefcase injured in the cavern? How did Henry find him? Why does he have the briefcase with the MacGuffin rock? What is the rock and how was it found? How does it connect to the Mind Flayer? How is it connected to the Mind Flayer if this flashback takes place before Eleven even opened the portal to the Upside Down in the first place?
Well, it's funny you should, George, they're onto us!
And for that matter, why is this experience so scarring for Henry? It was so traumatic that he couldn't enter the Mind Cave. But why? It must be because the Mind Flayer infected him here. But that doesn't add up. He revealed that he wanted the Mind Flayer to take control and unleash his inner evil. Okay, so what is it then? We see Henry crying, so perhaps only now he finally came to terms with the fact that him becoming Vecna is what he wanted? This is a critical piece of understanding Vecna's motivations and origin, and the Duffers refuse to elaborate.
Wow, this is garbage.
Similarly, we got no clarification about what the Upside Down is nor how it works. Okay, it's a wormhole. Sure, nice retcon, guys. Why does it look like Hawkins? Do the demo creatures live there or in the Abyss? Didn't the Mind Flayer live there originally? Why did it move to the Abyss? What are the spores in the air? If the vines create a network to alert Vecna, why wasn't he alerted when our protagonist stepped foot in the Upside Down? Why didn't he attack them there?
What the fuck is this?
I don't know.
And why didn't Vecna ever use his mindfuckery attacks again? I guess that's only a season 4 thing. It's hard to take the stakes seriously when the writing is this retarded, but it's also difficult to buy in when not a single character in a huge bloated cast dies in the final battle. Not that I necessarily wanted them to die, but it solidifies the severity of the stakes. Consequences make a story matter, and when 10 plus people defeat a kaiju and a psychic demon on their home turf and blow through on easy mode, it's impossible to make make it meaningful. And that brings us to 11's unclear fate. What's the point of leaving it open-ended when there's clear holes in Mike's theory? Maybe that was the point, but how can I tell when the Duffers have failed miserably throughout this season in terms of writing? Let's assume they wanted us to think 11 could be alive. We see the military's frequency devices aimed at our cast, implying 11 couldn't use her powers. Wouldn't she be incapacitated on the ground? Whatever. So if 11 couldn't use her powers, that means 8, who was shot in the stomach, force projected 11 in front of the portal from who knows how far away at just the right time, while also pulling Mike into the void so that 11 could say goodbye. Or was that 8 pretending to be 11? And even when she blew up underneath the bomb, the 11 projection still managed to stay materialized? God, this is sloppy.
You big dildo. Eat your fucking slop.
And since the evidence points to the fact that it was in fact 11's end, why did she feel the need to sacrifice herself? She was able to hide for 5 seasons, but somehow she and Mike couldn't make it work in some cabin in the woods? Why does Hopper seem at peace? He wasn't over Sarah's death the entire show, but 18 months later and he's accepted that 11 is just gone? I can't lie, I did like the final scene with the gang playing one last game of D&D, but I can't help but wonder, was the entire point of elevating Holly to pitch a spin-off show with the next generation of kids? If so, sincerely go fuck yourself, Duffer Brothers. And to add one last insult to injury, Mrs. Wheeler's scars are magically gone. I guess the makeup department took the day off, and I can't blame them. This season sucked. There's a lot more I could critique, but let's just get this over with. Was this finale the biggest disaster I've ever seen? No, but what a disappointing way to conclude over a decade of storytelling. The Duffer Brothers have signed on for some Stranger Things spin-offs. No thanks. They proved they didn't have the skills nor motivation to make their show make sense and give the characters fans have loved a solid ending. And how will Stranger Things be remembered? Bad endings tend to leave sour taste in people's mouths, and although this season will break Netflix viewership records, will fans want to revisit the series in a few years? I, for one, am not inspired to rewatch a show when it's clear the writers didn't bother to rewatch either, since so many writing issues persist throughout this season, and setups from previous seasons are left unfulfilled. And as we say goodbye to Hawkins and our motley crew of dungeon crawlers, I wish the final campaign could have ended on a much higher note. Thank you so much for sticking with the video this long. Again, my goal is to hit 1,000 subs and get monetized, so any support for me to get there to continue making high quality content for y'all is greatly appreciated. I'll see you all in the next one.
I guess it's not happening. I guess it's not happening. Stranger Things season 5, episode 9. It's not here. It's the 7th of January. Now listen, okay, there's a few things I do want to note because I do think there's still hope, and I'll explain why. But I do want to say, look, throughout the whole thing, everybody's been really split down the middle, okay? And for all the haters out there, okay, if you didn't watch my original video, I was once on the side of casting doubt, pressing X for doubt, okay? I said it in that video. I said, okay, I thought people were kind of crazy with some of these theories. But then as I started kind of looking into it myself, again, I explained it in that video. I'm not going to kind of go through the whole thing again. But it felt pretty convincing. Like, I do still think that there was a really strong argument and a very strong case to be made that they were going to pull this off. There's one thing to note. I know the haters are going to roast me. I was already getting roasted into oblivion on the other 2 videos, man. But I know I'm going to get roasted even harder. But I need to point it out. The January 7th date, that itself was in and of itself speculation. And I know what the haters are going to say. They're going to say, well, if you guys are wrong about that, then you're probably wrong about everything else. It's not happening. Give it a rest, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm going to be honest, and it's shaken my belief, okay? It's shaken my belief a little bit in the possibility of this happening. What some people have been noting, though, is the official Stranger Things account, after Volume 1, they basically uploaded like these, I guess it was like clips from, and then this episode, and then clips from that episode. And they just uploaded the one for Shock Jock today. And so it was like clips from Shock Jock. Also, can I just mention how absolutely terrifying the music is in that video that they posted? I mean, it's more creepy than the season itself. Like, what happened? That means there would be 3 more episodes to post for, and that would bring us up to the 11th. The documentary's on the 12th. Some people, I'm not saying I believe this, some people believe that, well, maybe it's actually the 11th, okay? I don't know, okay? I'll be honest, for me, I'm not against the idea, but I'm not like super sold on that idea either. I feel like I'm kind of playing the middle ground right now with this one. Because, look, man, I've been hurt, okay? I've been hurt with January 7th. I've been hurt. So I'm not sure that it's going to happen. I think it is possible because, again, the way I'm seeing this is the whole idea of January 7th, it came from very specific kind of things that people were like, oh, you know, there's 1 in a 7 here and a 1 in a 7 there. And the whole Netflix thing, right? I still think there's some weird stuff going on in that original Netflix What Next trailer. But anyways, I think that the theory can still be possible without the January 7th date, because to me, the theory did not hinge on a specific date. The specific date kind of came a little bit after when that What Next trailer came out from Netflix, and then people were seeing like 1-7 everywhere. And yeah, it was a little weird that we were seeing 1-7 everywhere, but maybe it was just one of those things where it's like, once you see it one place, you start seeing it everywhere. You know what I mean? When something's on your mind, you start seeing it everywhere. Maybe that's all it was. But again, I don't think that the theory necessarily hinges on that. And I still think there's a few different possibilities of going down this route. You know, one of the things is that I thought was really interesting is that, you know, I've never played D&D personally. I've always found it intriguing, but I've never really had the chance to get into it. Never really had anyone to play it with, and so I just never got into it. But I've always found it intriguing. I'm a nerd, so I like nerdy stuff. But the interesting thing that I learned about this, and again, if there's any D&D players out there, you know, you can let us know and elaborate on this in the comments. But what I heard is that there's a bigger kind of entity out there that the Nominee people in the D&D, you know, kind of lore, Nominee people are aware of. I think it was called like the Hydra or something. It's like a 3-headed dragon of sorts, I think it was, or whatever. But anyways, and so people were like, we're speculating maybe there's like an even greater evil, and what essentially this, you know, creature wants to do is unravel and you know, all of creation. And so that's a pretty cool concept. And now I'm almost bummed out that it's like season 5 was the ending, though, because I'm like, man, they could have went even deeper and further and crazier. Now there's a couple things I want to note. Okay, so we have a couple different paths to go down. There's going to be people like me that are going to be a little bit shaken, are going to be more on the fence now. Okay, I was really believing, I'll be honest, I was really believing. But now I'm a little shaken up. And there's still going to be a group that are going to be really, really, really like hard pressed. Like, you know what? Hey, you know, January 7th, whatever, it's still going to happen. Maybe it's going to be the 11th, whatever. I don't know. And then there's still going to be the group of people that are just like, I don't believe at all. And maybe there's going to be people that did believe and now they don't believe at all. So like everything's getting jumbled up. Okay. I want to know where you guys are sitting at though. Let me know in the comments below. Like, were you always a non-believer? Were you a believer and now you're kind of on the fence, or now you're like not believing it at all? Okay, so beyond that, what does this mean? Well, number one is if this never happens, if it doesn't happen on January 11th or ever, which again, it's now that January 7th is kind of going by, I think it's less likely, but I still think it's possible. Maybe that's just me kind of holding on to hope. I don't know. So option number one, and I hate to say it, but it's just that the Duffers really dropped the ball, man. They really messed up. And I think this is something that we can discuss maybe a little bit more if, you know, maybe like in a few days or something, if we see like really nothing comes out, you know, by the time the documentary comes out, and maybe once we actually see the documentary, but which is on the 12th. But man, if this goes nowhere else, which it seems to like, you know, be possible now, again, I'm in the middle now, then man, the Duffers messed this one. I'm not one to be like, you know, super uber critical, but my goodness, like it's like I said in the previous video, we went from season 4, which was absolutely terrifying. It was like, it felt like we were constantly building and building and building. Things were getting crazier. Season 4 was freaky, man. And then season 5 was just like, again, it felt like we were going to Disneyland or something. I'm like, dude, really? This it? And then like the whole boss fight was so anticlimactic. I'm like, come on, dude. Like that's like, even if no one dies in the boss fight, it just felt like there wasn't really much of a risk. There wasn't really much of like a fight. It was just kind of like, I mean, they really just kind of like destroyed Vecna like it was nothing. So I don't know, man. That's one of the options that it's just it's just bad writing. It's just lazy writing, which sucks because, man, season 5 had a lot of potential, and I don't think season 5 is necessarily completely bad. Like I wouldn't be like it's a 3 out of 10, but you know what we had hopes for. I think it's not great, and it had a lot of potential, a lot of missed potential. But option 2 is, like I said, it wasn't hinged on January 7th. There's still hope to be had. And, you know, we might still get it. We might. That's option number 2. When? I don't know. Would it be January 11th? I don't know. That's option number 2. Option number 3 is very quick. So option 3 is that our theory is right. It's just that there's not going to be it's not going to be on screen. It's an entirely kind of off-screen thing. It was implied. It was implicit. It was not explicit. It's not something they were planning to show, which would again really suck. And it's still like that still goes into option 1 where it's like the Duffers dropped the ball. But part of that is like it could very well be Vecna did actually win, and the whole ending is just a vision of Vecna's. It's just that we don't actually get to see that on screen, which again would really, really suck. Back to option 4, spin-offs, right? But they said it's going to be a new town, new characters, and everything like that. That doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't necessarily, you know, write off the possibility of Vecna necessarily not coming back. I mean, I don't know. They said it's going to be all new characters, but does that write off the possibility of Vecna coming back? Or do they just mean like the main crew, like the kids and all of like the, you know, everyone in Hawkins, right? Joyce and Hopper and all them. I do wonder that. Could we see Vecna come back? Like, is he actually dead? I don't know how it works in the D&D universe. Like, you know, that Hydra or whatever, could it resurrect Vecna? I've heard that's possible, but maybe someone with more D&D knowledge can better inform us. But regardless, if we don't see Vecna, then, you know, maybe they explore, like I said, that kind of whole Hydra or whatever, that bigger boss, a bigger enemy. I don't know, man, but like honestly, like I wouldn't have very big hopes for the Duffers pulling anything like that off after season 5, because again, season 5 had a lot more potential that they could have capitalized on, and they didn't. And I get you only have so much screen time, but man, dude, like, come on. Like, there was a lot of missed potential of so again, I think one of the options is like, maybe we see some, maybe they do a movie, maybe not. I don't know. Like, I don't know, man. I'm trying to process this with everyone else as well. But listen, I think those are kind of the options out there. The question I have for you guys is like, first of all, do you think that the theory is right, even if we never see it on screen, that Vecna did win and that the whole ending is just an illusion? But again, if that is true, man, like, dude, what are the Duffers doing? And do you think we could still see Vecna return in a spin-off series? Or do you think when the Duffers say like, oh, you know, all like completely brand new characters that they, you know, they're including Vecna, they're probably including Vecna too. They're probably thinking like, oh, Vecna's dead. But again, it felt so anticlimactic. I don't know, man. I'm bummed out. I know the haters are going to be like, see, we told you it was just a coping mechanism. No, because I mean, maybe, you know, part of it, you know, to some degree, but for some people. But I think part of it for me, like I said, I got convinced. If you go watch my original video, I got convinced because I'm like, dude, there's a lot of stuff that's just like, it's not adding up. And I'm like, I think there's a really strong argument for it. I still do. But I don't know. We'll see. If anything happens in the coming days, then obviously, you know, we'll talk about it. And I mean, we'll definitely talk about it. If nothing happens, we'll wait to see the documentary, see if there's anything in there that we can make out for the future of the universe, at least of Stranger Things, and any other kind of lore tidbits from season 5, maybe discuss that. But as it stands right now, it's I'm not sure how to feel because, dude, it's just like, man, so much missed potential. I can't get over that if that's the case. But and again, all those things that just didn't make sense. Some of them I agree were stretches. There's some things that like I wouldn't even bother with. There's a lot of things people were saying like, oh, look at this, and I'm like, okay, dude, that's literally nothing. You know what I mean? Like I was trying to be reasonable about it. You know, I was one of the, I guess, more reasonable crazies, as you know, some would call it. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Keep in mind, this channel, I actually originally made it as sort of a side channel. My main channels were like gaming channels. And I brought it back because I was getting so hyped about like the whole like season 5 lore and the potentials with these theories and stuff that I'm like, all right, man, and I'd already been thinking about it before that too. Because I like making content like this where we get to talk about, you know, movies and TV shows and things like that. And either way, as I replied to some of the haters in the comments, last thing I'll say is even if nothing happens, and nothing happened or whatever, nothing happened today, nothing happens in the future, it was fun. We had fun. I don't know about you guys, but like I had fun. I had fun going down this road and exploring all these theories and, you know, kind of nerding out about it. And like, it was fun as a community. It was a lot of fun. I almost feel bad for the haters because they just feel like a lot of them just sound like really miserable people, man. And I'm like, eesh, what a rough way to live, man. You know, hey, man, the rest of us, we were having the time of our life with it at least. So, you know, if nothing comes out of it, we can at least say that we had a blast along the way. So, you know, it's about the friends you made along the way. How's that saying go? Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. And I will see you soon. Lord willing, I will see you soon. But in terms of the future of Stranger Things, we'll see how that goes. And, you know, I'd like to at least come back and talk about the documentary once that plays and kind of discuss that after January 12th. So stay tuned, and I'm going to go cry in a corner. All right. Okay. See you guys later.
When you have the perfect response in your head, but your fingers just can't keep up. We've all been there. Typing, deleting, retyping. Now I use Whisper.
I love your face.
Yeah.
Best season ever!
What does it mean to be happy? Really?
Yeah, it's I hope the audience.
Like, I gotta be honest, the like when everyone had to be like, and it won't, and me, and me, and me. I was like, is that gonna work?
I just saw my ending and thought, oh, and then I walked away very slowly.
Do I think the fans are reading too much into it? I read too much into it, so maybe not. Maybe not.
I am in, I think, Stranger Things 5. Haven't seen it.
The series finales that have disappointed us over the years, this is something Matt and Ross and I have talked about, because those are heartbreaks. When you invest in characters and story for years of your life and then they fail you at the end by being either tone deaf to what brought you to that moment or disloyal to the spirit that made you love that storytelling, that's such a bitter disappointment and it sticks with you.
I hate all of this.
Nerderotic.com.
Greetings, you over 1 million hellions and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. After waiting 3 full years for Stranger Things Season 4 and then another 3 years, Stranger Things Season 5 has finally arrived. And if you're not sure whether or not Stranger Things is important to Netflix or not, Season 5's reported budget is between $400 and $480 million. That's almost $500 million to you and me, and roughly $50 to $60 million per episode. Currently, there's a movie out in the theaters right now, Avatar 3: Fire and Ass, that will probably be at $1 billion by the time this video is released, and the only thing anyone's talking about is Stranger Things. But it might not be in the way Netflix hoped, including unintentionally creating the most memeable moment of 2025 and slipping it in the end.
Truth is, I am different.
Now, many are comparing it to Game of Thrones Season 8, which may or may not be a fair comparison. Stay tuned to the end of the video. Because as HBO, George R. R. Martin, and Dumb and Dumber found out, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Am I right, ladies? At least Game of Thrones was a quality show for multiple seasons, and the same cannot be said for Stranger Things. Because things with Stranger Things are strange. Without a doubt, it's a cultural phenomenon. The closest thing Netflix has to a water cooler show, and maybe the last of its kind. It's strange because it's one of the few and rare Netflix shows that actually gets past a second season. And despite Netflix's ADHD release strategy that, believe me, we'll get to, it is one of the very few shows that's not only been able to maintain popularity, but actually gain it. Which again is strange considering no one would say that this has been a consistently good show, and no one would call it high art. A cynical point of view would be that it's just Nostalgia Bait the TV show, an 80s greatest hits album done by a cover band, released at a perfect time when 80s nostalgia was hitting the cultural zeitgeist. Nostalgia Bait the show or not, what they did well. As somebody who grew up in the 80s, they really nailed the look and the feel. But what it did best was its character work. Everyone rooted for Hopper, Joyce, Eleven, Michael, Lucas, Dustin, Jonathan, Nancy, and yes, Will. And the show was at its best when they had an antagonist to focus on, like Brenner or Vecna, in a setting that gave Gen X everything they love, including but not limited to the music, the malls, the roller rinks, the skateboards, the BMX bikes, the comic books, the video games, the parents that smoked. It borrowed heavily from Spielberg movies and Stephen King books. Conspiracy theories like MK Ultra and Stranger Things significantly fueled the Dungeons and Dragons resurgence. Season 1 was magnificent. Season 2 regressed but had a good ending. Season 3 was corny and ridiculous. And even though they got repetitive with things like Joyce going from crazy lady putting lights around the house to crazy lady putting art around the house, and regressing Hopper from an earnest character on a redemption arc to a complete buffoon, mainly Michael, Steve, Dustin, Lucas, and Season 2 Nancy held it together. But Season 4 was a return to form, and that had everything to do with the two missing elements from Stranger Things thus far. Proper 80s metalhead representation with Eddie, and an antagonist that would finally put a face on the evil of the Upside Down, Vecna. Admittedly retconned in later on because everything they were doing with the Mind Flayer wasn't going anywhere. And it worked, and it also didn't hurt that somehow Brenner returned, and somehow Hopper returned. The adults were separated from the children going on their little Russian adventure, and the kids were separated. There was Team 11, where she was trying to get back her powers, Team Byers with Michael and Argyle, who were trying to get back home to Hawkins and find Elle, and Team Eddie, where Dustin and company were trying to protect him from a town that thought he was committing all the grisly murders. And Season 4 accomplished a lot. Eddie became a fan favorite. They made Max likable, and it put Kate Bush back in the charts. Unfortunately, two of the characters that were doing a lot of the heavy lifting for Season 4 died, Brenner and Eddie. Ultimately, at the end though, our team did get back together. And it's at this point you would think the writers of Stranger Things would do a time jump, considering it took 3 years to get the season out. And it's not just a show, it's a Netflix show starring children. But after our ever-growing team of heroes gets back together, they view a Hawkins that has been completely split open. And as they stare off into the distance, it looks like all hell is going to break loose and the final battle is upon us, which would make a time jump impossible. And how did they start Season 5? With a time jump. No, not one that was long enough to sufficiently explain all the characters aging, but it was one to sufficiently explain all that quarantine weight Hopper put on. And that's really the only thing that's sufficiently explained in Part 1. Because after 3 years and $480 million, allowing the Duffer Brothers more time to do things like bring our characters to a somewhat satisfying conclusion while thoroughly explaining the Upside Down and finishing Vecna's origin, culminating in a thrilling conclusion. Instead, we got hour-long episodes that's pretty standard for streaming that managed to be way too long and slow and feel rushed all at the same time. Season 5 starts out with a flashback, one of many this season, going back to the night Will was abducted, and we find out that the Demogorgon was instructed specifically to find Will by Vecna. That's obviously how they had it planned all along, an explicit explicit horror scene that led to some political pundits who don't normally cover pop culture to misread this scene as SA over just plain old assault and express outrage. And it's not like Netflix hasn't earned this reputation, but this one was premature because they were portraying an older male monster who was pure evil victimizing younglings, a rare, unintentionally accurate portrayal from Netflix. But like I said, it's premature because later on they'll have something to legitimately complain about. But after that, we're back into present day in the timeline, 1987, and that's right, at the end of season 4, after looking off in the distance at the apocalypse, everybody just must have went back home. But now that I think about it, remember Agent Stinson who dropped off Joyce and Hopper at the end of season 4? I guess she didn't notice the apocalypse and just kind of f***ed off. Anyway, it's 18 months later in Hawkins, Indiana, and the entire town is under quarantine, and nobody gets in or out without the military's leave. This would be international news. How does the rest of the world feel about it? No idea. This is something that could probably be explained with a couple of expository news clips. It's not like the Duffer Brothers haven't done this in previous seasons, and I am bewildered why they didn't do it here, considering how expository this show is. But we do get some assorted details from, you guessed it, an exposition scene from Rockin' Robin, who's now a DJ and one of the main characters of the show. She tells us that Hawkins is essentially a military state, and the reason for a quarantine after what was a natural disaster is due to all the upside down dandruff everyone was breathing in. There's mandatory medical checks, there's no go zones, and all those cracks in the earth that formed around Hawkins where the hordes of the upside down were most assuredly about to come out of at the end of season 4. Well, they just covered them up with metal plates. And never mind the fact that this is Rockin' Robin's 500th episode and she's giving the townspeople of Hawkins a bunch of information they already know. This was clearly for the viewer. But essentially, things are just back to normal, and at least Robin got to slip in that she's going on a date, one that, unbeknownst to the citizenry of Hawkins, would be a lesbian date.
Albion Online is a sandbox MMORPG in which you write your own story instead of following a laid-out path. Explore a vast open world. Everything you do has an impact on Albion's player-driven economy. Every piece of equipment is crafted by players from resources gathered by players. The equipment you wear defines who you are. Switching from knight to magician is as easy as swapping your armor and weapon, or be a combination of the two. Venture deep inside dungeons and discover wealth and danger in equal measure. Relax by retreating to your personal island, where you can build a home, grow crops, and raise animals. Grab a fishing pole and head for Albion's rivers, lakes, and oceans. Join a guild, play together, take part in massive player versus player battles, and claim your piece of the world. This is Albion Online.
The Byers now live with the Wheelers. Lucas is still sad because Max is still in a coma. The actor playing Lucas is still sad because he went from a primary character to a supporting character whose sole purpose is just to be worried or sad about Max. Speaking of sad, Dustin is still upset that Eddie died. So are we, R.I.P. Nancy's gone from an intrepid reporter who was pretty good with guns into a brilliant military tactician. Jonathan is still useless, whiny, and gayer than Will. Will is still gay. Michael still doesn't know Will is gay. Hopper in his quarantine weight is training Elle in a montage scene that they probably should have left to the stunt woman. Joyce just stands or sits around looking concerned, and it's at this point I'd like to remind you that it's only been 18 months since the end of season 4. That's right, 18 months for Elle, Michael, Lucas, Dustin, Will, and a particularly rough 18 months for Robin. And because it's the final season and God knows this show needs it, we're introduced to more new characters like Timothy McVeigh and a new batch of evil military guys. And the person who will eventually become the fearless leader of this special forces unit in 1987, a woman, played by Linda Hamilton, playing a man, trying to outdo her insufferable performance as the anti-natalist Sarah Connor in Terminator Dark Fate, and she pulls it off. Never mind the fact that a show that's supposed to be in the 80s has completely forgotten that women weren't commanding special forces in 1987. Then there's our brand new primary protagonist, who technically isn't a new character, but she might as well be, the recast Holly Wheeler. Who? You know, Mike and Nancy's cute little sister who was last seen playing with a light bright in season 4. And arguably the best character of season 5, dipshit Derek.
I'm not dipshit Derek anymore. I'm delightful Derek.
And no, I'm not worried at all that they're adding to an already bloated cast, and I'm sure it won't get in the way of things like properly explaining the mechanics of the Upside Down and Vecna's origin, and leading to things like a rushed ending to get to a prolonged epilogue. Now, normally I think Netflix's recent release strategy with their bigger shows, breaking them up into parts, is the worst compromise between the binge model and releasing them weekly. But in this case, in theory, I think releasing it over Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's was pretty smart, as long as they focus on the core group and don't waste a bunch of time on characters they introduced in later seasons, or running around on meandering cockamamie plans that are occasionally interrupted with some forced heart-to-heart and an exposition dump for the secondary viewers. What is secondary viewing or second screening? It's when the viewers use a second device like a phone or a tablet while watching content on their primary TV screen, engaging with related content like social media, polls, games, or shopping, which has led to streaming shows to incorporate show and tell dialogue to keep distracted viewers engaged. Unfortunately, parts 1 and 2 are filled with all of that. Remember when the Upside Down was a dangerous place and you had to wear a hazmat suit? Well, now that the military has quarantined Hawkins, they've established a base in the Upside Down right next to the McDonald's, so they can search for 11, who they haven't found in the small town of Hawkins, Indiana, despite being, again, quarantined and filled with surveillance cameras. 11 is laying low with Joyce and Hopper, who she is once again having a strained relationship with, because Hopper's being overprotective due to the loss of his daughter. I thought we dealt with that in earlier seasons, but here we are again. While the military is hunting 11, our team of Steve, Robin, Jonathan, Will, Lucas, Mike, Dustin, Hopper, Joyce, and 11 are hunting Vecna, who was last seen being shot, burned, and thrown out of a third-story window. Pretty tough guy. He must be hard to kill, and not so much as a Demogorgon, a Demi-Bat, or a Demi-Dog has been seen since. While at the hospital visiting the comatose Max with Lucas, Will catches Robin being a lesbian. Normally, I wouldn't even recap that scene, but the writers wanted to make it very important to the story, and you'll find out later. Speaking of Robin, her being a DJ at the radio station, aside from being extremely annoying, actually serves a purpose. Rockin' Robin and the gang use the local radio station to send coded messages for crawls. Crawls are where they sneak Hopper into the Upside Down through a very special and secret entrance, because apparently it's too difficult to find someone with, I don't know, superpowers who could move the metal plates and get in wherever they want. And I want you to keep in mind that in the 18 months since season 4, they've done 30 crawls. And what they're looking for is Vecna's hideout, which they haven't found. Dustin is beaten up by a bunch of jocks because he's wearing a Hellfire Club t-shirt, because half or most of the town still believes Eddie was responsible for the murders. Sure hope they circle back to resolve that. Anyway, General Nancy, who is now a master tactician, is coordinating the next crawl with her little brother Michael, the very same crawl that Dustin's not going to be able to make because he got his ass kicked. And everything goes sideways while Hopper is hiding in one of the trucks in a military convoy. A Demogorgon attacks and kills everyone except for Hopper, who barely escapes with his life. Now, Will can witness all this because he has a new power. He can see through the Demogorgon's eyes, and he can also see that it's heading for the Wheeler house, and it's there to abduct Holly Wheeler. Now, Will knows this. Time is of the essence, yet he takes the time for a dramatic pause before he tells Nancy. Now, the Demogorgon, who just took out a military convoy with ease, swipes aside Mr. Wheeler, but has a little more trouble with the wine mom and her wine bottle.
Stay away from my daughter.
You don't deserve to settle, so play a game that won't either. We've introduced major changes to agents, weapons, and maps, and this is just the beginning. For the past 5 years, we've made a promise to defy the limits, and we plan to keep it by bringing you new content, adjusting what's not working, or even reinventing things altogether. Most importantly, this is a competitive tactical shooter, where abilities are there to help your gunplay shine, not to hog the spotlight. We've made up some changes to cut down on overall utility impact. Because when the odds are stacked against you, it should be your crispy aim and positioning that gives you a stronger fighting chance, or even the edge. And for maps, that's your playground, which means they should be as much fun as possible. We've made some adjustments based on real behavior to make it easier for you to use these spaces how you want to. The Valorant team is dedicated to growing better right alongside you. If that sounds good to you, then come play.
Watch me speak, about to take over your screen. Talking bulls in 93, talking mom, I'm on TV.
Can NordVPN protect you from unwanted gifts, intrusive relatives, or awkward parties? Not really, but it protects your gadgets online. Secure up to 10 devices with a single NordVPN account. NordVPN will help you avoid phishing, scams, and malware. Let your gadgets sparkle with online security. Get 74% off plus 3 months extra. NordVPN. Cybersecurity built for every day.
Before abducting Holly, Nancy and Eleven show up moments too late, but Eleven goes through the portal left by the Demogorgon where she reunites with Hopper. And as they both search for Holly, they end up hitting a massive meat wall that forms a perfect circular perimeter around Hawkins that apparently our trusty team of teenagers and adults missed on the 30 previous crawls. What is this giant meat wall? Oh, we'll get to that. Meanwhile, the mortally wounded Wheelers are sent to the hospital. Now, why would a Demogorgon want Holly of all people? Well, Nancy and Mike suspect it might be her imaginary friend, Mr. Whatsit. Why didn't I mention it before? Because it's a complete waste of time. Mr. Whatsit is Vecna. And I can hear you now, dear viewer. They've already introduced a bunch of new characters, and you'd be right, but this one was obvious. Yet, the Duffer Brothers spent an exorbitant amount of time on this. So Mr. Whatsit is Vecna, and Elle can't sense his presence because he's somewhere behind the meat wall, and Will can not only see through the Demogorgons, he can see through the eyes of Vecna's victims because he can see through the eyes of Vecna. And prior to this, because the Duffer Brothers wanted to make this a critical part of the story, Robin tries to convince Will that she wasn't being a lesbian when she was being a lesbian. And there's some forced scenes between Jonathan and Steve competing for Nancy's affection, and Steve being mad at Dustin, which is the only thing that actually goes somewhere, but they're barely worth mentioning. In the meantime, Joyce remains concerned and Lucas is still sad about Max. Hopper does get shot in the upside down, but he shakes off that injury pretty quickly, and that's going to be a theme for this series, because somehow the Wheelers are still alive despite Karen getting her throat slashed and being disemboweled, and Ted Wheeler, who's in a coma after having his chest ripped open. And let's take a brief moment here to acknowledge the bravery of one Ted Wheeler, a man who stood up to save his family. And what does he get for his trouble? He ends up in a coma, and his cheating wife, ungrateful bacon thieving children, a homeless family he takes in, and the writers of this show don't give him a second thought. We salute you, Ted. Meanwhile, Hopper and Eleven, who have essentially been sidelined in this show, are still dicking around in the upside down. After failing to breach the meat wall, they're ambushed by a bunch of soldiers, and Hopper kills a half a dozen servicemen with families and take Timothy McVeigh hostage. Now, after Hopper tells him he would kill more servicemen with families to save Eleven, they torture him and find out that his boss is the very angry Linda Hamilton playing a dude. Now, it's extremely important for me to point out there's yet another conversation between Will and Robin about her being a lesbian.